The Master Tavern Keeper's History of the Old World.
Och, I'm intrigued now. What do you mean these black orcs are not natural, Septimus?
Well, my uncle said that whilst he was in a dusty cellar of the archives of the University of Altdorf, he stumbled across an ancient dwarf scroll hidden away, written in archaic Khazalid. It was a report, as far as he could tell, transcribed for Kurgan Ironbeard, the High King of the Dwarf Realm 15 centuries ago. However, not only this did my uncle uncover, for wrapped within the parchment was a sheet of vellum upon which was inked a translation, written in Umberogan, the language of Sigmar himself. Now, it's been about a millennia since the last natural speaker of Old Umberogan passed away, but although it is effectively a dead language, many of our words in Reichsspiel come from it. Additionally, it is still a known and studied language, even if no one is a native speaker of it. Sorry everyone, that's the historian in me rambling. What I'm saying is this. Even though the original Khazalid scroll was indecipherable to my uncle, he was no scholar of Khazalid, the Umberogan was not.
Oh, yeah, I see. And so, what did it say, Master Tavern Keeper, about these black orcs, I mean?
Well, a great deal, both intriguing and enigmatic. But it began by first talking about the Dawi-zharr, the Chaos Dwarfs, and their centre of power, the Tower of Zar Nagrund. It went something along these lines. The Dawi-zharr.
For the eyes of Lord Krieger, esteemed founder of the Initiatic and Holy Order of the Templars of Sigmar. Wulfgart, it is done! I have laboured long on this translation, drawing on every quanta of the knowledge I accrued during my years spent amongst the dwarves of Karaz Akarek. I am confident that I have elucidated the meaning of the scroll, despite the damaged script and rarely used words and phraseology within it. In essence, it pertains to one of the great evils perpetrated by the Frurundar, the Tainted, more commonly called the Dawi-zharr or Chaos Dwarfs, hidden away in the Dark Lands. The author, a dwarf called Hagrag Wierzaki, appears to have been an eccentric runesmith of the northern dwarfhold of Karak Kadrin. In the scroll he claims descent from Kurgaz, the greatest of the rune lords of the clan of Morgrim, but it is well known that all runesmiths are related, so this tells us little. However, he does mention both his mentor and peers, and after some research, I was able to place a date on the artifact. I believe it was penned at least 100 years ago, and covers events that transpired a further 50 years earlier, thus 150 years before the start of our Holy Imperial calendar. According to the author, he was captured, held, and tortured by the Frundar for many years until his escape during a massive slave revolt. His account of what he saw and experienced is as follows.
My esteemed High King, in shame do I, Hagrag Wilzaki, son of Azridal, write these words. It is with a wounded heart and fateful tidings from the east that I write. There is darkness on the dark plateau of Zorn Uzkul, my king. Darkness propagated by the wayward survivors of our great migration 4 millennia ago. O great High King, I write of the Frundar. Into the dark lands to the east did I travel, ignoring the advice of both my father and my peers, the esteemed runesmiths Borin Duradskol and Arakat Okrun, in search of lost runes and anvils of the ancient Dawi that journeyed out into the dark lands before the great catastrophe. I was successful in a way, but for my sins I found much more and much less than I sought. My apprentices and I trudged east, out to Peak Pass and into the blasted wastes and its parched desert, following the words of an ancient account that described one of the ill-fated expeditions of yore. Here we were ambushed time and time again by ragged tribes of scrawny grubby. We felled many, ending the threads of greenskins beyond counting, but each skirmish cost us dearly, with anger and sadness. I buried so many of my beloved apprentices and loyal protectors, yet still I would not be persuaded from my course. I was mad with curiosity and the desire for lost knowledge. I still see the faces of each of my lost comrades when I close my eyes each night. Grug me, curse me. And so it came to this. We but numbered 4 when we stumbled onto the plain of Zaladuk. The air was thick with the taste of smelted iron, and plumes of black smoke snaked and trailed out across the sky. Here we were soon confronted by lakes of molten tar and rivers of burning oil that decorated a land torn up, cracked, and pitted. Hills of mined coal dotted the land, and slag heaps loomed large. Poisonous crags over a dried-up sea. We saw towers and chimneys of mines and foundries at a distance, appearing and then disappearing as royals of rolling cloud enveloped and then disgorged each with equal ease. They were clearly Dawi, but twisted by something I knew not. My companions urged me again to turn back. Grug me, curse me again. I heeded not their wise advice. Onwards we went, boot over boot, the sickness in my soul driving me on until at last, on the horizon, appeared what I now know is the obsidian tower of Zharr-na-Grund. At first I thought it a strange, stepped mountain. Black smoke streamed from it as if the whole thing was on fire. Fool! I now know that each of these emanates from one of the ceaseless furnaces that consume and rumble in the tower's bowels. There was something about the mountain that unnerved me. Something that shook the insanity out of me. And suddenly, I knew that I had been mistaken. No good would come from being out here. So, to the sighs of relief from my comrades, I gave the order to turn back. But it was already too late. Intruders! It was a large troop of hobgoblins. They swarmed over us, and although we killed and killed and killed, we were soon overwhelmed and overpowered, and all became black. I woke in blackness, in a dark, dank cell, and here began my decades-long incarceration in the depths of the Tower of Dwarfs. Decades of nothing, interspersed with bouts of hot, bloody red torture. I never broke. I never revealed the secret of the runes. But I got to see much of the tower as I was moved around the city, passed from one torturer to another. As far as I could tell, the whole city was built upon a series of tall steps, a ziggurat, with each of its square steps many hundreds of feet in height. I even saw the extent of this height, as one of my torturers dangled me from one of its uppermost battlements, whose pointed crenellations resembled the fangs of some feral beast. From here, I could see down to its base, down to its lowest step, at least when there was a parting in the dark clouds. This foundation was vast. It had each of its corners cut off and replaced with immense gates. 4 huge stone gateways, bound in iron. Out from the east and west of these, I saw 2 roads, paved with gold and brass, one heading off towards the mountains of Morn, the other west towards the peaks of the World's Edge Mountains. Home. The gates to the north and south opened out onto a river, the River Ruin I've heard it called, whose waters I'd later overhear were used to cool the city's huge forges and power the steam-driven engines. The river was also used for dumping the unwanted byproducts of the incessant smelting, and the river's sludge-ridden and poisonous waters were dyed yellow and red with effluence and noxious waste. Even so high up, I could see yellow ochre fumes pour off it, drifting over its befouled riverbanks, things that resembled a polluted painter's palette more than anything belonging to the earth. These were but short glimpses, though, for dark cloud and shadow quickly hid everything in the time it took to blink, but they were enough. This place was a hellscape. The constant darkness afforded by the black clouds that drift over the whole area brought to my mind that the tower existed beyond time, somewhere in an eternal twilight of its own creation. The light of Sol had been blotted out, eclipsed by the breath of its furnaces. Roaring furnaces that powered steam-driven hammers that stamped out sheets of iron and bronze with rhythmic, sonorous booms, the pulse of their dark, diluvian god. Burning furnaces that heated enormous cauldrons of liquid, ready to be poured out into finely wrought but devilishly fiendish intricate molds. Fiery furnaces that spun great groaning wheels that ground against each other, making the very air vibrate. But who, you may ask, were these scions of industry? Who was it that with one hand created and with the other tortured? At first, I too did not know. To begin with, my torturers were hobgoblins, each more cruel and malicious than the next, but these were but the servants of the furnace, and the servants of the creators of the furnaces. I did not meet the true lords of the tower for a long time, not until it became evident that I would not break. Only then was I passed on to the masters of the tower of Zarnagrund. Dark Dawi, corrupted traitors, both lost and damned. They were like no dwarf I've ever met. They were vile, twisted things, full of bile and malice, and obsessed by sorcery, the dark arts, and power. They were demon-smiths. They were fallen. These were the descendants of the lost dwarves of the eastern expeditions, twisted by the corrupting influence of the realm of the Dark Pantheon, though they served none of the four unspeakable concepts, rather another, a being that had saved them from the four, only to break their spirits with its own malice, a being these Frulundar, these tainted Dawi, called Hashut. I know no more of it than that, and I wish to know no more. I was resolved to wait for death, and would have languished there in the tower until I had passed from thought. But for a most violent event that almost ended the reign of the Frulundar, but instead has given us all a new foe to face.